You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Amy, and with me today are Christos and Kelvin. Now, Patreon members, remember, you can now watch All Good Things, if you prefer consuming our show visually, as an extended edit of this very episode. Well, hello, Christos, Kelvin. How are we today?
Good. I guess I got to start watching my facial expressions if we're going to be sharing this visually. I'm very prone to rolling my eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, but maybe that makes it more enticing for our Patreon members.
It does.
They get to see our little sassy views.
Yeah, they say only so much conversation is verbal. So if you want the full experience, you need to see the way we eyeball each other.
Exactly. And what we're wearing, I'm wearing my hashtag Deanna shirt. Kelvin?
I've got my USS Enterprise Haynes manual.
Oh my gosh, I love that shirt.
I'm wearing my San Diego Football Club, and we beat Club America yesterday 3-0. So it's actually soccer fever is kind of like striking San Diego right now. We have a professional team, and it's our first year, and we're actually good.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. I remember when Salt Lake got their professional and they went to the top the first few years. So good luck to San Diego.
Yeah, I believe we beat you guys twice already this year, so that's good.
Yeah, we've gone down since our heydays of the beginning.
Don't worry, geeks. The sport talk will be over very, very shortly, and we can return
yeah.
to our normal broadcasting.
So,
Well, happy Pride to everyone. June is Pride Month, and this is our first time together, and want to wish everyone just a fabulous, safe, and warm and loving Pride Month. We appreciate everyone.
I like to say Pride Summer because even in San Diego, we don't have our Pride until mid-July. So the Pride kind of is it's a vast summer-long thing, especially in Southern California. We spread our prides out, so you have the option of going to all of them if you want to.
Yeah.
We don't just do it all in one weekend.
Ours is the end of August, so Manchester Pride is like the end of summer, so that's it. After that, hibernate until Easter.
Somebody told me there's this thing called Sitges Pride in about 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes, Sitges Pride, because we will be descending on Sitges. That's why.
Kind of like away team / convention / Pride. A little bit of everything.
Yeah. Oh, cannot wait. Well, I will be enjoying Boston Pride with Mark and his partner, Andy. That will be next Saturday, so I'm very excited to be there. And if you're in Boston, come find me at the parade.
Yeah.
She'll be at the very front of it.
So I have 2 little things I want to share. I actually went with it for Wednesday night. I did not need to do this, but I did it with a buddy. And we stood in line at Best Buy to pick up our Nintendo Switch 2s. And I didn't even realize what I was doing when I did it because we were very on top of things. We had it pre-ordered, so it was very easy for us. So we only stood in line for 2 hours waiting for it to open. And once it opened, we were in and out of there in 20 minutes. But we were surrounded in fandom. It was another fandom. It was Nintendo, it was Mario, Zelda. It was that fandom. And I got to kind of watch that in action. I hadn't stood in line for anything in a really long time. And people were just happy and they had their shirts and their hats on. And the Best Buy people were doing their best to really get into it. So it kind of shout out to all the other fandoms that are out there because that was kind of fun. And so I have my Switch too, and I can still play Star Trek Prodigy on Switch. So there you go. That's my Star Trek tie-in there. And if you're watching, you might notice my background has changed and that I got my new furniture finally. And that gold chair you see behind me, when you sit in it and look at it, it is very reminiscent of Captain Kirk's 1701 captain's chair. It's kind of little bit to do with why I picked it out. But there's my two little Star Trek far-fetches, but tie togethers for the week.
I love that. And shout out to Bargain Bin Gamer, who has done the Switch reveal. And so please check out our other show on our network if you are interested in gaming. Davey does a great job over there.
Always plug in.
Yes. What is this intro called? I don't have it in the notes. What are we doing again? What's
I don't.
the
I was just being
Star Trek
spontaneous in this,
tie-in
Amy
thing? What's
Nelson.
that, Kelvin?
I was being
Oh,
Yeah,
spontaneous.
no, I love it.
It's our Trekking the Strangest of Places. So if you've come across one of the actors on another TV show you happen to be watching or referenced or something like that. So I guess tying in with furniture shopping, that's Christos. Done.
Yeah. Anything for you, Kelvin? Trek in the strangest places?
Only that. Well, not really. It's kind of obvious, but it's James's birthday next weekend, so I've been looking for gifts and things. And so we always joke that we're really easy to buy for because you just buy something Star Trek related, but we're also very difficult to buy for because chances are we've already got it. So I showed you last week. I was like, look, I've got the new Batleth pizza cutter for James. And then last night we had a party at our house for something completely different. But one of his friends turned up saying, I won't see you now until your birthday. So here's your birthday present. Got him the Batleth. So I'm like,
Oh my God.
great. So now we have two. So we can have a Batleth battle over a pizza.
Oh my gosh, I need to see that. Kelvin, you're gonna, yes, put that on all your socials. You're gonna come up with something cute. I cannot wait. Yes.
Yeah. So it's trekking the strangest of places for me this week is the kitchen. What about you,
That
Amy?
is awesome. Gosh, I'm not doing so well with this segment. I haven't found Trek in strangest places.
None in Mexico.
I do have, and I say this all the time, people love coming to Vegas, and there is a friend who flew in and met him on the Star Trek cruise. And so gathering a bunch of locals and going to RuPaul's Drag Brunch, very excited. But I just love my Trek family and how everyone comes to visit me, as I always say.
I think that totally counts.
Okay, good. Well, listeners, today, very, very excited. We are launching yet another new series. Christos, what are we doing?
Actually, I'm a little excited about this one. Okay, not a little excited. I'm a lot excited. We're going into beta canon. Dun, dun, dun. So those of you who like to read the novels and the comic books and all the other ways out there that we get a little bit more stories, and some of them count and some of them don't count. They're out there, and I know for myself personally, I've been reading Star Trek novels probably since 1989. I can't even remember them, all the ones I've read. I look at them like, I know I read that book, but what was it about? Because I've read so many of them, and heck, it's been a lot of time. So we thought it'd be kind of cool to start diving into some of those really bigger ones that have had lasting effects on the Star Trek universe, whether they're canon or not. It's the idea that hey, it had an effect on things, and there's some things out of there that we kind of still take as canon.
You know, I'm also very excited for this. And like you, I've read a lot and I've forgotten most of them because I was in this frenzy in 2000 when TNG came out with their DVD set, all in the, silver book, if you remember that packaging. So I was consuming Star Trek. I was so loving it. I went to the library and in my small library, they had a section of Star Trek books, and I combed through every single TNG one. It got to the point where I was ordering books from other libraries. I was just reading all these TNG, and I'm like, these are episodes. It was so glorious. Oh my gosh. So I too am very excited for this series. Now, Kelvin, we are going to be discussing Imzadi by Peter David. can you tell me, where does Imzadi fit in the Star Trek timeline? Because I know you love timeline.
I do. And I needed that mental image so that when I was reading, listening, I could place the characters with the correct haircuts, uniforms, etc., etc. So we are in towards the end of season 5 before we get to season 6. So it was written and published in 92, which is the year that TNG season 5 is. So if this had a star date, it would be starting 4, 5, 8 or 9, something like that, towards the end of the year. So yeah, that is where we are.
All right. And we did choose Imzadi, number one, because it's an amazing book. And if you've never read any Star Trek books, this would be a great one to start with because it is so good. But we also chose it because Peter David recently passed away. He May 24th of 2025. He was 68 years old, and he wrote for so many different franchises: Battlestar Galactica, Marvel, DC, Babylon 5, and he wrote like 13 different movie novelizations, like just a prolific writer. Kelvin, talk to us about some of the Star Trek highlights.
Yeah, well, he did quite a lot of Star Trek books, ranging from all of the different series through to original, next gen, DS9. But he contributed massively to Star Trek by doing a series on Starfleet Academy, which I might go back and read some of those because it'd be very interesting to see what from those books go into the new Star Trek Academy season, or like the themes of them. But he did bring us a what is considered a complete series in itself, which is the New Frontier series, which established a new starship, a brand new captain. It had tie-ins from the other series as well. Captain, well, she wasn't the captain, but Elizabeth Shelby from Best of Both Worlds and Picard season 3 was one of the main characters in that series. I know my James loves the New Frontier series, and only a couple of weeks ago, we went in a thrift store and they had a load of the Playmate action figures, and there was a special mail-off kind of promotion to get hold of the Captain Mackenzie Calhoun action figure. And we found it in the thrift store, and he loves that. He's got it. And I don't think the guy who owned the shop realized how rare and valuable it was. So like, we paid next to nothing. So I just think it's cute that we're talking about Peter David series and New Frontier. Another memory of mine is before the internet, we got our spoilers through the magazines that used to come out. So Star Trek Monthly magazine in the UK quite often used to give free gifts every now and then. And there was a book series where there was an original series book at DS9, TNG, and Voyager. And it was they were all linked together, all of the stories. And you got and the series was called Invasion. And Peter David wrote the DS9 chapter of that for. And that was the book I got free with my Star Trek Monthly magazine that month. So that's a big, strong Peter David book for me as well. So it's been very nostalgic, just reflecting a little on Peter's contribution to Star Trek. He's done some great work.
Yeah. Christos, did you read any of the other TNG novels that he wrote?
Yeah, I did. And it's kind of funny. You had your TNG novels, and there was like the ones that just kind of came out like maybe every couple of months, and they were a soft paperback, and and then there were like bigger books that got a lot more promotion or hardback, like Imzadi and whatnot. And I think Q Square also had a hardback, right? So his books tend to got a little bit more elevated, and because of him writing the book, they got a little bit more push behind them, and went a little bit bigger. And so that's why I always remembered the Peter David novels. Interestingly, though, I've never read the Captain Sulu adventures, and I'd be really into that. So I may go back and give that a read.
I mean, and also, like, he wrote that with James Doohan. So, like, working with a TOS actor, how amazing would that be for him? Be great.
Very cool.
All right. Well, let's get to our storyline and our plot. So this book goes into 3 different time periods. The first being 2350, around there, and that takes place on Beta Z. And we have Lieutenant Riker and Deanna Troi, who is actually studying psychology at Beta Z University. So we've got that time period. Then we have our current, if you will, time period on the Enterprise D, which is 2368. Big players there. You've got your Commander Riker, as we know, Counselor Troi, Captain Picard, and Lieutenant Commander Data. We also have the third time period, which is in the 2390s. And in that era, we've got Starfleet Admiral in command of Starbase 86 Riker. We have Commodore Data, who is in command of the Enterprise F. We have Lwaxana Troi, who is on her deathbed. And we get a showing of Captain Wesley Crusher of the USS Hood. Christos.
So, I mean, can I just point out how much this book's structure, these are like episodes, that's why I like them. But the structure of this book is very much like All Good Things. We've got present, things happening in the present, we have things happening in the past, things happening in an alternate future, and they're all kind of dependent on each other. So I can't even imagine that there wasn't a little bit of inspiration for the All Good Things finale that was taken from this book.
What a great connection. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yes.
Especially given how popular this book was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was actually a fourth time period as well, albeit it was only a bit of a little memory almost, but they did did some exposition around the Farpoint scene where Will and Deanna meet. So and that was very All Good Things as well, going the flashback to Farpoint. So I really appreciated that too.
Yeah, and even more so, probably feeds into that idea that there was some inspiration taken for the All Good Things finale from this book, which I'm all about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelvin, you want to summarize the story?
I will try my best. Now, I will give full disclaimer here. It's so many years since I read this book. It's not committed to the memory. So I went back and listened to the abridged version on Audible. So I'm only going to be able to give a little bit of a summary of the abridged version, which is probably enough, let's face it. Riker wants to go back in time and change the past to prevent Deanna dying. There are a group of people called the Sindarine who are looking to change the outcome of the race's future by disrupting some peace talks. And apparently in the timeline, Deanna exposes them. So they thought, let's kill Deanna and then we'll be prosperous in the future. Old Man Riker comes back in time to the present, season 5, 2368, and tries to save the day, all the while being reminded of his romance, the beginnings of it with Deanna in kind of what we had as late 2350s, 59, I think I had it as recorded here. So we get a lot of exposition about the history of how they met, which is what I particularly enjoyed in this book.
Yeah, I think that because Lwaxana is on her deathbed and calls for Riker, and he goes and she basically like blames him, and so he's carrying that weight. Of course, he blames himself. So it's that weight that is bringing back all these memories, and he's recounting the story to Wesley, who comes to Starbase 86. Right? I forget why. But yeah.
I would also say like this, I get that the idea of older Admiral Riker going back in time to change the future is very, very reminiscent of Admiral Janeway coming back in time in Endgame to give a different future. So there's probably more than one inspiration that's been taken from this book. Now that I've having read, it's kind of was funny. I also I read this book a long, long time ago, but I did the abridged audio as well, and it was funny. I had to stop and remind myself when this book was written, because some of the things did seem a little tropey But when this book was written, it was original. A lot of the things were, but we've also seen a lot of the things that are in this book happen later over in Star Trek again. But like I said, reminding myself this was written, between seasons 5 and 6. Most of these types of story arcs did not exist yet.
Primordial trope.
Yeah. It's the OG.
Well, I also read the abridged version, in part because I was on vacation, but because I've read this book 3 times, like front to back, you guys. And I read it last summer, hanging out at the pool, enjoying a good book. And so I thought, I'll get this abridged version, and seeing that it was narrated by Jonathan Frakes, which we will talk about later, was so awesome. And like the story just came back, and now I am going to read the book just because I want to compare, like, what did the abridged version leave out compared to what's in the book, Because I can't really remember. Oh, there was more detail I remember when Lieutenant Riker was on Beta Z, and that going on with his work and his boss or whatever. I remember that, and his boss's daughter. I mean, yeah. All right. Well, there's so much to discuss. Let's get to our favorite, continuity and timeline consistencies and discrepancies. So I've got a couple questions for you. So what details or plot points have been retconned on screen since the book was written?
Right. I'm going to jump straight in here. I love the TNG episode Second Chances with Thomas Riker coming back. And they establish that Riker was serving on the Potemkin during the Nevala 4 incident. And that's the reason he didn't go back and meet Deanna. So they explore all of that. And in Riker's career history, he served on the Potemkin, then the Hood, then the Enterprise. Whereas this book talks all about the Hood. He's just about to be first officer on the Hood. So they completely, it doesn't exist because it's not known. It's not down to Peter David. He's not ignored anything, but it has been retconned. So that took me out a little bit, the whole kind of timing of what was said in this book versus what was said in the exposition on Second Chances. So that's my first one.
I think I don't know if this was going to go on the headcanon or here, because I think it could be retconned, because in Second Chances, Will and Deanna were supposed to meet up, right? And then Will never showed, and Deanna waited. I still believe that could have happened, because in the book, like, they leave Beta Z and they're like, well, we're not together. But I feel like they could have had the conversation, because Deanna is still a student. So she's not going to leave her studies. This is her career. And, so she could have finished the university and said, hey, you go do your Hood/Potemkin, or you get your thing, and then let's meet back together when we're ready, because I will be graduated. So in my mind, I'm mushing it in to make it work.
Yes.
That they could have set up that date, just not mentioned it in the book.
Yeah, I can see that. I also, for me, so I have a little harder time with all of it, because it's like, for one thing, I always assumed their time together was more. And it's their time together, 10 years before Enterprise, whatever, was very brief in my, from the way the book portrays it, is, almost like one encounter, not like they dated and were a couple for a long period of time and then broke up and he went on with his career and whatnot. And your point about Second Chances is spot on, because it does allude to this idea that they were kind of on a break and supposed to get back together, but you don't really get that in the book. So, like I said, I always assumed that when they had this history together as two characters, that it was some extended period of time, and it feels very brief in the book. So,
Yeah, I think in not the abridged, I felt like it was a 2-month post that Riker was there on Beta Z, just sort of his trying to get Deanna to date him and then finally getting there. And, it's a little more drawn out in the
Yeah.
book, I think. So I gave it a 2-month thing. So,
Still just a holiday romance, isn't
Yeah, I
it?
was gonna say. I
yeah.
was gonna say 2 months is still kind of a fling to me. So
Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
There's a great point here in our notes. I don't know who found that about the Riker's middle name.
oh
That's a
yeah,
great piece of retcon.
Right? Sort of giving a James T. Kirk, because what was his middle initial originally from
It
Gene
was
Roddenberry?
R.
R, that's right. So William T. Riker in chapter 10 is stated to be Thelonious. However, in Second Chances, we know it's Thomas.
Great. Amy, you might be able to help me with this as well, knowing Troy as well as you do. But I very much saw Troy in this book as young, as a student at university. And given the way things stack up, 2359, 2364 is Farpoint. How is she suddenly a lieutenant commander? Where is her early Starfleet career? She wouldn't have just graduated psychology school and then gone in as lieutenant commander. Was she a Starfleet cadet first, finished as a lieutenant, went to school? Who knows? So that got me thinking a little bit about where is Deanna's early Starfleet career?
Could she have done some kind of like post or like the last year of university internship
Yeah.
with that dual enrollment type?
yeah.
Almost like
I
we
think
see, Roland Aaron goes to tactical training, people go to command school. Maybe this was an integrated part of her career and she wasn't the
Yeah.
young student fresh that I read her as. So yeah, I was just
yeah.
curious if that was established anywhere.
Yeah. My headcanon is kind of that she, when she decided to come into Starfleet, she would have been accepted kind of with rank. I think the U.S. military kind of has some areas where you can do that because of your education and history. You don't just like start out at the bottom of the totem pole. Yes, you have to come in and do some trainings to kind of catch up a few things, but you come in with a rank versus
That's true.
coming in
With a degree.
coming in with just, hey, I'm ensign or yeoman or whatever we're going to call it. She probably came in a little higher up. I mean, she kind of would have had to be at lieutenant commander already by 2364.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good call. Yeah. All right. Well, what inconsistencies are there in the book that don't fit with established canon?
So many.
Well, you know what? So you could call them inconsistencies. I just call that an alternate timeline, the same way All
Yeah.
Good Things is an alternate timeline and everything else. So for me, the minute they go back and change things,
Mhm.
a whole nother history is going to happen, which would probably be our prime timeline, I guess we'd call it. But I would just call this as a divergence in the timeline when that, they even call it that focal point of being Troy, that caused a divergence in the timeline when she was poisoned and killed. And by preventing that from happening, you put the timeline right. So just like how All Good Things was a timeline, that the moment, they did their whole little static warp shell, prevented that whole different future from happening. So I don't call it an inconsistency as much as I would. This is how things could have happened had this one event happened.
And what about the name dropping casually that Data was in command of the Enterprise F? Back in 92, that was such a throwaway thing. Let's think of a letter of the alphabet in the future. So since that, we've seen the Enterprise E. We've also seen the Enterprise F as the Odyssey class. So you get to read that now thinking, I wonder if it was the Odyssey class one. So you get to kind of insert your mental images.
But even as the Enterprise F is referred to, you can put a visual,
Yeah.
like, so that's, whereas you would have had to imagine that way back in 1992 or 3 or whatever we're talking about.
I'm going to say something else I like as well, and cover your ears, Amy. You're not going to like this, but that thing of predestination paradoxes and things happen. So in the All Good Things timeline in the future, Deanna had died.
Yes.
And then in this, she dies, and the future is about dealing with her absence. So it's like, was she destined not to be there? And actually, the prime timeline was the one where she survives out of many in the multiverse.
Well, and
Dead.
I love that you just made another connection between All Good Things and this book, which leads just further my theory.
Berman read this book.
I have a hunch.
Well, when I read that Data was in command of the Enterprise F, like normally that just would be fine, but since Picard season 3, and now we have, so I was just like, oh, I read that and I was like, oh, darn it, now it's gone. I can't have that visual. Yeah.
Well, this is kind of cool too, because if you think about being in 1992 and reading this, and it just would have been just like less than a year after Redemption Part 2, where Data did get put in command of a starship. So this idea that it did come to fruition and he did take command of a starship kind of continues on with some of the things that were laid down there. I like the idea of Captain Wesley because, by this point we had seen, what's the Starfleet one where he messes up really bad? First Duty. That is the last time we had seen Wesley prior to reading this novel. And so obviously he had come back from that. But this totally, if you want to talk about retcons, he went a whole different way. Obviously, we saw with the Travelers and what would become, what we'd see in Prodigy season 2 and whatnot. So this idea that Wesley was this big old Starfleet boy, that went a whole different way.
I'm going to need someone to write a book of Wesley so that we can get all of these things mapped out. Because I could see Wesley still being a traveler and then coming back to Starfleet, and then doing the whole Prodigy thing. Like, why not? But I want those dots connected.
I think it's almost coincidental as well, because if you think how long it takes to write, produce and publish a novel, same with the series, I don't think Peter would have seen the episodes of season 5 whilst he was writing this. I think they were just, came out at the same time. So the fact there is the story about the first duty with Wesley at the Academy in early season 5, and you get that reflection point that he's now a captain in the future. That's interesting. But there was also the tiny little plot point about Data's head being removed.
Yes.
Which is what they did in Disaster when Riker had to take the head and plug him in engineering to get the ship fixed, which was only a few episodes before this. So I like those little continuities in all of these things happening in 1992. The headless data. Well, we saw 2 headless datas in 92 for Times Arrow.
Times Arrow, yeah.
In fact, we were in the middle of waiting for that 2-parter to be resolved.
Yeah, that's right. Where they found Data's head
when this book dropped. So, there's this all, like I was saying earlier, these call it little tropey at this point because these things have popped up in other places and whatnot. So, but they're good things all together though. But the biggest thing I'm taking away from our discussion is that they read they read this book before they wrote All Good Things.
Yeah. Another little tropey thing that made me chuckle is they had to figure out which Data, because there were 2 Datas, one from the future and one, at our star date. And Data's using contractions. And that's just always the big giveaway. Oh, this isn't our Data,
Well, and that goes all the way back to Data lore, right? And season 1. But I did like the mention of the lore aspect of it, like that the way they kind of made that story up there to make it make sense. I think Admiral Riker cooks up that story. I kind of like that because it's like, it was a good way to get buy-in, I guess.
But they didn't establish how Data could use contractions in the future. So we have kind of had to mentally think, is it because of the emotion chip, even though that's not mentioned? Or did I skip that?
Oh, I read it as that it was his normal progression to be more human. That's how they explained it.
He just learned it.
Like he evolved
organically.
When he's in what year? 2390s. Yeah. Data's just using contractions because that's what he does.
I mean, you would think that you would think that, or just like write a damn program to use contractions. I mean,
Exactly.
it was like one of those really weird things about data that never made much sense, because we could write a program now for AI to make something talk in contractions. So
exactly. I do need to sound. I need to sound my continuity alarm here, because one thing that I almost kind of threw the phone across the room when I was listening, and I got it. They got the star date wrong. So that flashback scene to Farpoint, the star date for Encounter at Farpoint is 41153.7. Season 1 started the season 1411, and they said that when Picard gave the his captain's log around that scene, he said it was 42372.5, which puts it in season 2. So this would be around the episode, The Outrageous Akona. Pulaski would have been there. It doesn't work. You got it.
See, and that doesn't seem like a mistake that, David Mack would make. Like, because season 1 had already happened, and that's a known star date.
However, you can kind of wrap this back and say, well, they went very authentic TNG season 1, because they got the star dates all over the place in season 1 TNG. But they were never that wrong. It was just the third digit that caused a little bit of problems. So yeah, naughty. Do your research.
Yeah. Sloppy, I call that. Sloppy.
All right. So from this book, what is now headcanon? It's happened no matter what. It's your headcanon.
For me, I think the whole meeting of Riker and Troy, I kind of accept that as canon now. It's, and what we have not even talked about too much is I loved Luoxana in this book, especially in the early part of the book, where she's just interfering and being like, I think he wrote her really well. I captured the character really well, because I found myself smiling and giggling when it was Luoxana parts. So I knew I was really enjoying it. So yeah.
Absolutely. Right. And Mr. Holmes speaks.
Yeah, yes. He did.
So that could be, would this the first? Because he spoke, wasn't it?
No, they say in the text,
Haven.
And he did something that I've only ever known him to do once before. He spoke.
Yes.
And the time he spoke, I think it was Manhunt. It was Manhunt or Haven, where he downs the drink and says, "Thank you for the drink." That was it.
Yes. Yeah. I think that is Manhunt. I want to say Haven, but I think it's not. Yeah. Yeah, when they, Troy and Riker meet, definitely. Because, if you think about it, where she was poisoned and that's our, alternate. So, like, before that is canon. Like, this is where they met, and we get the introduction of the word Imzadi and what that means, and the significance and the gravity that has on a relationship. So, it's just worth reading the book just for that one thing, in my opinion.
I like...
No bias there, Amy. No bias.
Yeah, the fact that this was Deanna's first makes, to me, that bond so much special as well. And even Riker went to the point of saying, "You're not my first, I'm afraid." But I just love that. It deepens the relationship, I feel.
I didn't take it that was Deanna's first. She explained that it was the soul connection. That was the first she was talking about. And I didn't necessarily, you could go either way with that, but I didn't take it. I thought that Riker was being kind of flippant and assuming, "Oh, well, I'm not a virgin, sorry that you are." And she's like, no. This is about your soul experience and whatnot, and that bonding mentally, and that bond. And I didn't take it as Deanna being a virgin, but
interesting.
Yeah. But like I said, you could probably take that either way.
Yeah.
I like to give her a little more credit than that.
No one goes through academy years and comes out a virgin.
All right, well, let's get to some assimilations and regenerations. What did you love about the book? I'm gonna go first because I really loved how well the love scenes were written without it being that gross romancy, you know. It gave me equality. Like there was this hesitation, but this strong desire. They were dancing on this line between yes and no, which I know can be very problematic, especially now in 2025. But in the 90s, that was the, "Oh, don't. Oh, yes." That was the thing. But he wrote it well where both Riker had hesitation and desire and Deanna. So it was equal, and that's what I really liked about that, because writing love scenes can be very one-sided, and I feel that he did it pretty well.
Nice. I don't know. I thought the love scenes were a little cheesy, but we can talk about that a little bit later. But I think that's also like a preference thing.
Yeah.
I will say though, I did like how immature Riker was written in some of the ways. I mean, it was a good way to show not a fully formed character that he is, in, TNG while we were watching it, right? Or whatever, the 2368, that in those years prior, he was younger and less mature, less experienced. And I think he did a really good job at capturing that.
Mm-hmm.
I also loved that we spent some time on Betazoid, both like in the past, obviously, and a little bit in the future, alternate future there, and spent some time there. We don't, especially at that point in time, hadn't seen a ton of Betazoid, and it was, or Beta Z, sorry. And so it's kind of really cool to just get more time there and get a little bit more context on the planet and whatnot.
Yes.
Mine's a little easy one. There's a character who is with Data at the beginning, and it's an Orion character called Mary Mack. And I just found it really funny because that's the name of one of my local drag queens, who's actually performed last night at Sitges Pride. So it just sounded really funny to have Mary Mack in the book. And I was picturing a flame-headed Scottish drag queen who performs in Manchester.
Yeah.
And then they went on a big exposition of it's an Orion. Oh, interestingly as well, when there was a huge passage about Orion females and how interestingly that one is in Starfleet and they've never been seen before as anything other than sexual objects. And I thought that's interesting writing because fast forward to Lower Decks, the Intendi, the offense to Orions is to depict them all as pirates. So they've kind of gone past the Orion Slave Girl original series, but that was very much here in 92 what you thought of when you thought of Orions.
What is she? Isn't that the running joke though in Lower Decks? They go, well, for 5 years we've had a better reputation or something to that effect, right? Like they've only had this cleaned up reputation for like 5 years. So, so that would actually track well with this book. I think the Mary Mack character suffers a lot in the abridged version. They take a lot of it out.
Yes. Agreed.
It falls out a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I, of course, again, Deanna comment, really liked getting her backstory of, her training in psychology and how she sort of, tried a new theory out on him, sort of used him as a guinea pig of this spooning naked together to connect without the spiritual.
Is this could we put this in our medical ethics series? That
Right?
It sounded a little bit dodgy to me, that.
I mean, she's not an
That's
official
so
psychologist.
funny.
She's only a student. So, I mean,
When the teacher says, I've never heard of this theory. I don't think it exists.
But it's a good theory. I mean, she's very smart for doing that.
The other assimilation for me, I love that we get a Cameloid as the character, which is, fresh off the heels of The Undiscovered Country. This is the year after But interestingly, the year before DS9, so there is no concept of Odo and the changelings yet. So when you think of a shapeshifter, you've only really got the cameloids, or who were the species in the dolphin, Anya and Celia.
Oh, yeah,
Those
that's
guys.
right.
I can't think of the aliens. But that was kind of it, or even the salt vampire. So it was good. And then obviously we get them again in section 31. So we've got the original, the beta canon cameloid, and the more contemporary one in section 31. That was nice.
Yeah.
So still a very fresh concept in a way
Mm-hmm.
when this book was written. I don't think it's in the audio version, but in the actual novel, when Dr. Crusher's rushing to Troy's quarters, Dr. Solar is with her. And so there's another Dr. Solar reference there, which is like kind of funny that Dr. Solar was only in one episode of TNG. And it was season 2, not even on screen with Gates McFadden, but always gets mentioned in books and in the TV series itself. And I always think it's a little funny that just that one, I guess, that became kind of, I must have written up like in a writer's Bible or something that's medical staff that you can pull from.
All right. Well, what were some of the things that you're regenerating, sending back?
I'll let you have the music, Christos. I think we both feel the same in this one, but you go for it.
Yeah. So listeners, during this week, we have a chat for All Good Things hosts. And as we were all kind of listening to this book this week, we were we were having some comments to each other on it. And one of them was that some of the music choices in the audiobook, especially for the love scenes, was very reminiscent of some really bad pornography music. But I don't know how we would know that, but there you go.
So we hear.
It was just very cheesy, is the way that you call it, but it almost to the point where I distinctly remember cringing hearing it. Like, oh my goodness, this is just taking me out of the moment.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of like season 2, season 1 episode music that's you're like, what is, oh, yeah, it was distracting. And I don't normally listen to audiobooks. And so the audio, it was like in stereo. And so like one time it was coming out of my right ear, and then the other time it was only in my left ear. And I'm like turning my head, like who's talking to me? And it was difficult when I was in loud places, like to hear, because it was only in one ear. And I'm just so used to consuming my audio in both, like podcasts. So that was really just, I'm like, I need to just read the book.
I think that was the margaritas in Cancun, Amy.
Well, no, I'm going to stick with Amy on this because I thought the same thing. I had the book on full volume just to hear it. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Frakes' voice would come really loud for one line. And you're like, whoa, why can't all the levels be that?
Yes.
They're not doing much loudness on their...
I did it mostly in my car, so I guess that kind of worked for me.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But when it's in your ears, then it's like, whoa, who's talking?
Well, you also need to remember that in most cases, these audiobooks were originally consumed on cassette.
Yes.
I mean, that was the popular format in early 90s, so cassette or CD, I guess. But
of its time.
Yeah.
Speaking of Frakes, now I'm not saying he did a bad job narrating. He did a great job. I just found it quite strange that when he was reading his own character's lines, he didn't sound like Riker. So it was, especially when he was doing Old Man Riker, it was so different. And so clearly that was a choice he made. And it really made me question, why are you doing that? Riker sounds like what you sound like. You don't put on any particular voice for Riker. So I didn't like it. I didn't like the artist choice he made for his own characters, plural, the way they sounded.
I was going to say maybe he got a little bit better at this because he got a little practice. So by the time he had to do Old Man Riker and All Good Things, he did it a lot better.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Christos. This was his first go around, and he's like, oh, that was a mess. Let me try it again.
That's
Because,
funny.
he was so angry, which I get because you lose your Imzadi, but there was a disconnect with Old Man Riker, especially. And his Loxana was funny. But his Picard was terrible.
Yeah. It was bad. Like another moment that I just kind of like fell out of it, like was that was those few passages he had to read.
Yeah.
There was one part in like toward the beginning of the book where they're like when he's Admiral Riker on Starbase 86, and they're talking about like, oh, we're in trouble because we're not processing these forms fast enough and whatnot. And I think that's just one of those really old school type of things that we did that people just don't have a good enough grasp of looking to the future to say we would be past that. Because I feel like even in 2025, that does not, it sounds dated and wrong to say, oh, we're processing forms. It's like, come on, we're already very few forms that we have now are automatic and you're doing it on a digitally and blah, blah, blah. So they mentioned paperwork, and I don't think you'd be calling it paperwork in the future. Even in TNG, we don't have paper,
Right.
So I just, things like that, I feel like when people are writing for Star Trek, it's not the first time I've had that feeling. I just feel like you're not having this, you're not thinking like a futuristic environment. You're using our verbiage and our jargon from now to describe the future, and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. So a big point that my regeneration, again, going back to this idea of equality, Deanna was written so well. And then we get the end where people are trying to kill her. At this point, she just becomes a damsel in distress. And I didn't like that for her character because everyone's trying to kill her and she doesn't do anything. It's everyone else coming in. There's Riker, or there's Commander Riker, there's Admiral Riker, there's Lieutenant Data and Commodore Data, and Crusher's coming. And it's just, she's the object of all the commotion going on. And I was just like, ugh, it could have been written better. And so I'm regenerating that.
Yeah, I'm going to go straight in with that as well. There was another scene earlier in the book where I thought there was a little bit of an effect of masculine writing and, dare I say, slut shaming. I didn't like the dialogue of Riker's when Deanna was hooking up with that other guy. Obviously, they were trying to write it as jealousy, but the things he was saying to her and to this other guy, it was pure slut shaming. Nice to see you, but I didn't expect to see this much of you. Ha ha ha. We know Will and Deanna's relationship isn't like that. They don't talk to it. They acknowledge the other relationships that they have. They don't see that in a jealous manner. So yeah, I didn't like that. I thought it was cruel to women to say things about that.
Yeah.
And the one thing you didn't say there is like Riker and his hookups are like notorious. I mean, he's got, the character itself has such a reputation around it.
The double standard.
Yeah, it's a double standard. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's get to some trivia. Christos, you want to start us off?
Sure. Peter David was inspired by Harlan Ellison's concept of the city on the edge of forever. In the original script, Kirk was all ready to sacrifice the universe to save Edith Keeler. That was the depth of the love he had for her. To me, that was a powerful concept that I thought he didn't let Harlan do it and was going to do it. So that was the genesis of Imzadi. So I guess, having been like a OG or a TOS fan and whatnot, and wanting to bring that back, this probably was the first time we bring back the city, the aspects of the Guardian and whatnot. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that it was the Guardian of Forever.
Yeah.
Imzadi reached number 7 on the New York Times bestsellers list its first week, and it remained there for 6 weeks.
That's pretty awesome for a Trek novel.
I would always
Well,
remember, like, anytime there was a hardback, it was a bestseller.
mm,
That was back when, you had millions and millions of people watching TNG every week and peak Star Trek, if you want to call it that.
yeah. Yeah. Well, there are some editions of the audiobook erroneously identify the narrator as Jonathan Frakes. How disappointing would that be if you go get it and it's like, this isn't Frakes? What's going on? So have James be on the lookout for that next time. Because do you think that would be worth money if you found the wrong audiobook, like on cassettes?
So there was multiple different narrators who recorded the audio track to it, and they all say Jonathan Frakes when some of
Yeah,
them are
but
not.
it's different
That would
people.
probably be worth money.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Starbase 86 was shown on a holographic star chart in Discovery Die Trying, Season 3, Episode 5.
There
I think
you
I'll
have
be
it.
doing that episode in a few weeks' time.
All right.
I might
all
have just
right.
seen that in our future episodes log.
Oh, there you go. Well, let's look for it then. All right, guys, this has been such a fun discussion and about Imzadi, written by David Mack. Let's get your final thoughts. Christos?
I think of this as another fun romp. It's a little bit of like a trip down memory lane for me in some ways, to kind of almost memory lane / re-experiencing it for the first time. I liked our discussion and how, although this was very fresh when it was written, kind of comparing to some of the things that have happened, in the 30 years plus, 35 years plus since this book was written. It's kind of fun to do. But I think it's a good story. I think of it really much as a divergence in the timeline. So I think this book is totally fits with canon for the most part, because, the minute Troy does not die, the timeline changes. So I feel like this book doesn't necessarily come out as totally dated. And I think that's really cool.
Kelvin?
I just like what I said earlier about what it establishes in my headcanon of the origin story of Riker and Troy's relationship, considering it is such a backbone to all of TNG, and then even more so when you get them wedded in Nemesis and into modern Star Trek. It is such a thread throughout all of modern Star Trek. So to have that completely unexplored on screen and to get this backfill makes your enjoyment of any Riker Troy episode of TNG and Picard all that better. So it fills in the gaps.
It sure does. As I said, this is the only book in my entire life that I have read 3 times. Well, now 4 if you count the abridged. I mean, I haven't even read my scriptures that many times, like front to back. So this book, I absolutely love it. It has everything. Time travel, plot twist, Guardian of Forever, romance, love, Imzadi, all
David's
my
head.
favorite characters. Yeah. So I just highly recommend Imzadi. Cannot say it enough. I will continue reading it. It's been about every 2 years I read it. By then I forget, and then I'm like, it's just wrapping up, as we always say, in a warm blanket. That's what Imzadi does for me. So,
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. I'd like to throw it out there for listeners, as this just being our first episode of Beta Canon, what would our listeners like to see us explore in the world of Beta Canon?
Yeah.
Yes. And a tie-in, it was because of Imzadi that I know it so well, that when there was the online Trek book club on Twitter way back then, and now we have it on our BQN network run by Peter. And he reads these books and then asks these questions like on one weekend. And I was participating because I knew Imzadi. It was so much fun. And I was like, this is a great idea. So if you too enjoy reading Star Trek books, please check out our Trek Online Book Club. And it's a podcast as well. Kelvin, what are we talking about next week?
Next week, we are going back to our Fear Factor series, part 6, and it is the DS9 episode, Empok Nor. So if you cannot remember by title, that is where they take the away team to an exact replica of DS9, another of the same space station types, to get some spare parts. And there's some psychotropic compound that makes Cardassians go a little bit weird and killer-like, and it starts to affect Garak. So it's a very big thriller episode, a bit dark, a bit scary. So
spooky.
Yeah. What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristin. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey and Mitch, self-proclaimed gamers who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out, hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for The Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through Star Trek cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam Aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Zalagis, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissy and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissy and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into Beta Canon with Peter, host of the Trek Book Club on Twitter and Bluesky, and his companion Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Treksperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey and MC. If you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch The View Screen live on Sundays, your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy, with new 8-week seasons in the spring and fall. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with an LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the Tea Bev. And for our patron members, we have the Hive Mind with script readings and roundtable discussion, It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, and Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek. You can keep up with all of these shows by following the network at BQN Podcasts on Instagram and Bluesky. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio. We would love to hear what you thought of today's show, and there are many ways you can do this. You can join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective. You can join our Discord server, which the links are in our show notes. Or you can follow us on the socials, Bluesky or Instagram at BQN Podcast to continue our discussion there. You can find the links and the invite code in our show notes. Christos, where can people find you when you are using the Guardian of Forever to find your true Imzadi?
I'm not sure I'll be using it for that, but you can find me on Instagram and Bluesky at either Greek Geek SD or at What's the Tea Bev. I guess I've been really bad about Bluesky lately, so I need to put that out there as a caveat. You can also find me in the Facebook group, the BQN Collective, and in our Discord server. So, Kelvin, where can people find you when you're not spooning naked with potential mates.
When I'm not in sitches, you can find me on the socials at Kelvin's Timeline, or you can best find me in the BQN Collective Facebook group, where I'll be seeing all your comments on posts, memes, etc. I love it. That's my favorite place. And Amy, where can people find you when you're not lay on your deathbed scowling at young men for how they've wronged your chosen family and to go and fix it?
I will. Yes, the death grip around their necks. Well, when I'm not doing that in sitches, you can find me here in the network where I'm co-hosting Union Federation. Don't find me on Bluesky. I just can't do that. Discord. Please find me in Discord. Love it there, and on our Facebook group, BQN Collective.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can join our Let's Play reaction show, script readings, and enjoy our special patron-only shows of It's Green and Amy's Math Moments. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages.
Now, if becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support the show by sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or hitting the like and subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leaving us a 5-star rating and written review, because that'll help others to find the show.
At this time, we would like to thank our very own associate producers, Tim Cooper and JJ Seastrom. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and Kelvin for our weekly artwork each and every week.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us as we search out
all good things.